Good morning, everybody. Once again, happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of Benzinga All Access. Quick primer for those of you unfamiliar with the show, you've never seen it before, real quick. This is a show that when I think about it, I think of on the spectrum of like super boring formal investor presentations and like super loosey goosey podcast conversations. This is right in the middle of that, right? The point of the show is to talk to CEOs and founders about their company, where they've been, what they're doing, where they're going. Talk about the story there, right? I'm not interested. We're not interested for the purposes of this show in talking about the stock, why it's gone up, why it's gone down, why it's gone sideways. Don't really care. Won't bring up the chart, right? Not interested in that. Not really interested in financials. I don't want to get too nitty gritty into the financials. If it comes up, it comes up. But that's what investor presentations are for. This isn't quite that, right? It's not quite an investor presentation. I think of it again as more of an amalgam of the two, of the podcast conversation and the investor presentation. So I've got joining me today 4 executives from companies in varying industries, and we're going to spend about 20 minutes or so with each of them, and they're going to tell us all about their story, their background, but also the background of their companies, right? A lot of the executives today are also founders, and we're going to talk through that journey and figure out if we can, where they're going. Because the whole idea here is that there are thousands of companies out there that have interesting stories, right? And it just takes a little bit of effort to get to them, right? And so the whole idea here is to make it easier and connect them to you and vice versa. I will always save time as a reminder at the end for Q&A. So please drop your questions in the chat, and if we have time, we'll get to them. So I think that was my spiel. If we can get some likes, I'd appreciate that. Welcome to everyone that came over from pre-market prep. I see you guys in the chat. What's going on? What's going on, Abe? What's going on, Martin? As a reminder, and I say this for at the beginning of every single All Access show, this show is demonetized on YouTube for a reason. The companies presenting on today's show have paid Benzinga, but they do not know what I'm about to ask them. They don't know the questions. They might think they have some idea, but they don't know what I'm going to ask them. It's a conversation. It goes where it goes. They don't know what you're going to ask them either, right? So, but there is that to be aware of. It's why it's noted that way on YouTube, and we are transparent about that fact. All that being said, I think it's time for us to start the show. You guys ready? Our first guest on today's show is a doctor, but was a practicing doctor and made a career pivot from practicing medicine to the business world. Marc Hedrick, he is the president and CEO of Plus Therapeutics. Let's get Marc on right now. Good morning, sir. How are we doing today?
Hey, Spencer. Good morning. Great. Thanks. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the show. So was my tease correct? You are a doctor, but you were a practicing physician and a surgeon, and now you're not, right?
Yeah, still a doctor. Don't practice. Okay. I dispense free medical advice, but that's as far as it goes.
So yeah, so tell us about that. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up here.
Yeah, I mean, very, very accidental. Took an unintentional exit from medicine, but yeah, background is a Texan. Grew up, went to college and medical school there. And then by medical training standards, I'm massively overtrained. I had 11 years of training after medical school and was a general vascular surgeon, and then did what's called a plastic surgery and pediatric and fetal surgery residencies after that. So, and then had a great academic job at UCLA, and then had the opportunity to leave on sabbatical to start a company. And I was crazy enough to do it and had a boss that was crazy enough to support it. But once it's been doing that ever since. But once you, and I was super naive, but once you create those obligations or those bonds to start something, and importantly raise capital around it, you can't just walk away from it. So it was really tough to go back, even though I love my medical job.
So what was that opportunity that you had?
Well, so we were kind of early in the stem cell field, kind of back in the late '90s, and we had an interesting. Our team at UCLA had an interesting invention. We were plastered over all the front pages of the newspapers back when they had newspapers. Remember that?
I do.
And the network news programs one night probably was a slow news day, but we had opportunity to raise capital relatively easily, and my boss said, "Look, hey, go start a company and let's see what happens. It's good for UCLA. It's good for University of California, and go get it done." And that we developed one of the first public U.S. stem cell companies.
Wow.
Back in around 2000.
And what was that like? That was at a time when stem cells was a bit of a hot button issue.
Yeah, it was, and raised a fair amount of capital, but midway through the development program, the FDA changed our regulatory framework in a very significant way. So we had to make a massive pivot, and it was very capital intensive. And ultimately, we made the hard decision to divest, frankly, the things that I sort of brought to the company back then, to divest that and pivot to the targeted radiotherapeutic space, which is where we are right now. But yeah, it was unfortunate that that the regulations changed, but that's part of the game, right?
Yeah. So then tell us about like what can, because eventually you take this winding road and you end up at the company that is now known as Plus Therapeutics. So how'd you get from stem source to there?
Yeah. So our stem source technology and company was acquired by a company called Macropore, that it was originally a U.S. company, but it went public in Germany through a strange series of circumstances. But we worked to develop the cell therapy technology, and then I got a battlefield promotion to the CEO job with the concept of either make the stem cell technology work, or pivot the company in an appropriate value creating way. So in 2019, we actually divested all the stem cell assets. We acquired two, and now a third chemotherapeutic or oncology related drug, and we rebranded the company as Plus Therapeutics back in 2019. So the company now, Plus, no stem cells, focused on this kind of resurgent space and targeted radiotherapeutics. And we built a team that has expertise in the various aspects of that. I can talk a little bit about that in a moment if you'd like.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. You kind of already sort of answered what my question was gonna be, was just give us the high level overview on what Plus actually does, because it's as I understand it. Why don't you just explain it, because you just go into more detail on what you just said.
Yeah. So the company, it's Plus Therapeutics, ticker's PSTV. We have 3 clinical stage drugs. Clinical stage meaning we're in patients, but we're not approved by the FDA or equivalent regulatory agency. Our lead drug is what's called a targeted or precision radiotherapeutic. The name of the drug is 186 RNL. 186 is the isotope and the number of the isotope. But 90% of our focus is on developing this very cool, unique drug. And radiotherapeutics, if you've heard of them in terms of thyroid treatment, I-131, super common. It's really revolutionized thyroid cancer and hyperthyroidism. But the problem is getting the radiation in a high enough amount to the organ that's bad, but not the normal cells and tissue. That's the key. And so through new medical devices, through new imaging, through molecular targeting, now you can take incredibly high doses of radiation and then basically parachute it right onto the tumor and essentially nowhere else. And you just essentially fry the tumor and only the tumor, and leave the normal stuff. And so we really saw this as we sort of had the core expertise to move in this area. And then we were looking at new assets to build out our pipeline. I just fell in love with this asset. that I found that was developed at the University of Texas and MD Anderson. And right around the time we were doing our due diligence, the National Cancer Institutes came in and said, we like this asset so much, we're going to fund the clinical development of this. So we essentially in-licensed a compound that had significant amount of funding with it. It makes us look good like a management team, but frankly, we were just lucky. But we have this sort of lead asset that's in large part fully funded by the NCI or NIH right now.
So now where are we in the regulatory development pipeline of R86 RNL?
Yeah, so right now, 186 RNL is being used clinically in treating patients with recurrent brain cancer, and glioblastoma is the technical term for it. And I mean, it's as bad as it's the diagnosis you never want to have, like pancreatic cancer and brain cancer. You never want to have it. And despite standard of care, patients just don't do well from the diagnosis. So we're wrapping up kind of a phase 1/2A clinical trial, and actually we're presenting a significant amount of that data. This trial's been going on since 2015. It long predates our involvement with the technology, with the academic doctors and the NCI that we're working at. So we're going to present the survival data and a lot of the safety data next week. I think it's next Thursday afternoon, East Coast time, around 4 o'clock. We're having a couple of the doctors that are involved in the trial, and we're going to talk about the technology at the Society of Neuro-Oncology. So there's going to be a live Zoom webcast. People are welcome to follow that or watch and call in. And we'll have some of our analysts on doing Q&A with the investigators. But yeah, so in terms of regulatory, we're finishing up a phase 1/2A for glioblastoma. We've gotten another trial approved for another kind of brain cancer disease called leptomeningeal disease. And then we're in the process of working on a third trial for pediatric brain cancer, all using the same idea of targeted precision radiotherapeutics directly to the tumor and nowhere else.
Why exactly did you fall in love with this as a treatment?
So I'm not when I operated on patients, I did something called craniofacial surgery, which means that I operated around the brain, but not in the brain. If I got in the brain, it was usually bad, and we had to call the neurosurgeons to come help us. But I was familiar enough with some of these terrible neurological cancers like glioblastoma to know that there was no good treatment for them. And then drugs that have been developed for them, there's just a lot of risk because there's something called the blood-brain barrier, and it's really tough to get drugs beyond that in high enough doses to work. And there's ambiguity about how a lot of these drugs work. The brain's isolated from the rest of the body metabolically, so to speak. So when I saw this drug, I just said, there's no question. I know this is working. Radiation in the form of high energy electrons or beta particles will kill brain cancer. And theoretically, this is more of a blanket statement. Theoretically, if you get enough radiation to any tumor, you can eradicate it. It's just a matter of, can you do it precisely and avoid the downstream effects to the other normal tissues and cells. So I looked at this and said, there's no question this works. The only question really is from a corporate development perspective is, can we deliver it safely and reliably such that we can get it approved? That was the only question.
I talked to a lot of companies in biotech and healthcare, drug development, and I always ask the same question, right? Like, why hasn't this been done before?
Yeah, so the marriage of targeting to radiation hasn't really been taken on as a mantle until recently, because there's sort of an amalgam of technologies that have come together more recently. New radioisotopes like rhenium it's a crazy rare earth metal that's used mostly in making air engine blades. If you believe that, they have just super high heat tolerances, and that's why they're used. But it's also a great radiotherapeutic for a lot of reasons. So it's new radioisotopes, it's new targeting technologies, and in our case, there have been developments in the ability to put needles or catheters into the brain very minimally invasively. And to deliver this drug, for example, we have imaging technology and software that helps us in 3 dimensions plan exactly where to put the drug. We can see the tumor on an image, like an MRI.
Right.
We can develop a plan in silico. So this is all before the patient goes to the OR. You develop the whole treatment plan, load that finding into the computer in the OR, and basically it really tells the neurosurgeon what to do. So it's really that marriage of imaging technology with the radioisotope, with the drug formulation, that's kind of all come together to make this possible, at least in our instance.
So and just to be clear, 186 RNL, this is your pipeline, right?
This is our lead drug. So and so it's one drug, but it's useful for a variety of different indications. And we're really just scratching the surface of it. But the company, more strategically, is very carefully being acquisitive and looking for ways to build out our pipeline beyond 186 RNL. We think there are enormous number of potential technologies and paths forward. So
can you maybe give like an example of like what one might be theoretically?
Yeah, so on one hand, with 186 RNL, if you can put it into the brain, you can put it theoretically into any organ or tumor. And we're a company is really focused on like man's worst tumors, for example, like the glioblastomas or the pancreatic cancers and those sorts of things. So there's ability to expand what we're doing right now in the brain outside the brain. And there are other radioisotopes that are as unique as 186 RNL, but they're different isotopes married with different targeting technologies. And so we've built the core expertise to be able to develop these and roll these out, which is not insignificant because we have to have an expertise in imaging, in radiotherapeutics and drug formulation. And you just don't you don't develop that accidentally, you develop that intentionally. And so now we've kind of built the sort of infrastructure for that. So, we're looking to leverage our infrastructure in bringing more therapeutics to market beyond just 186 RNL. For example, we just hired a chief medical officer that's got several decades of experience bringing a variety of different radiotherapeutics to market. So we've added a chief medical officer who has done this for essentially an entire career, to help build out our team and look forward towards commercializing these radiotherapeutic products.
And real fast, can you just repeat? You said you're presenting at a conference. Can you repeat when that is?
Yeah, it's a Society for Neuro-Oncology. Just go to our website at plustherapeutics.com. Go to the investor page. You can see the links to that. But it'll be next Thursday afternoon at the Society for Neuro-Oncology meeting, and it'll be a Zoom line, and people can call in and listen to the presentation. We'll have 2 doctors plus myself.
A couple questions from our chat here, Marc, and they're both in the vein, along the same vein you just mentioned, talking about partnerships. Noel Vick wants to know if you work with Array.
No.
All right. Array would be the ticker. I should clarify. Accuray would be the name of the company. And then Cardiol Therapeutics. Ricky Zan is asking about those guys. If you've worked with them or.
No.
No.
We have a number of partnerships. Those are all public, but it's neither of those companies.
Who are your partnerships?
Well, so most of our partnerships right now are related to drug manufacture and drug development. These are in vitro, Piramal, University of Texas, MD Anderson. So they're all related to the development. We don't have a commercial product at this point, so we don't have commercial products, but we have products to because we're making the drug essentially, right? So it's our drug, we're making it. We're going to have drug by the middle of next year. It's suitable to go into what's called a registrational trial or an approval trial. So we're making it a very high scale and a high quality such that we can move it through the last stages of clinical development and commercialization.
And so can you explain that timeline a little bit more as far as, because I think a lot of us are familiar with phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, but there's more to it than that.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's not as simple as that. So for Plus, we're actually going after rare cancers that generally have an accelerated path through the FDA. So for our 186 RNL product, it's for glioblastoma, which is an orphan disease. It has orphan status, which provides some benefits. We also have fast track status within the FDA. And for rare fast track related
Anyway,
drugs,
for people who don't know, that's a term that gets thrown around a lot, especially in COVID. Can you explain the fast track?
yeah, it basically gets you kind of priority review and priority access to the FDA. And then you have the potential, because think about it like this: if there are diseases like glioblastoma that are essentially death sentences, there are no good treatments. The FDA is trying to help you get this into market because there's nothing for these patients, right? Or there's not much for them.
Right.
So they allow you to have a preferred seat at the table and get approved, not with 2 phase 3 trials or 2 late stage trials, but you can have 1 phase 2 trial. You can get approval, and then you have the option then to do what's called a phase 4, a post-marketing trial. So you're already approved, but you're gathering real world data to support your phase 2 trial. So potentially, you can do 2 trials to get approval for rare diseases using fast track status. And then potentially there's something called breakthrough status that gives you, there's kind of like VIP gold and VIP platinum. So they're different levels, and the FDA kind of dispenses those based on the clinical need and how promising your drug is.
And just to be crystal clear about it, because you're still in the product development stage, this is a long-term story.
No question. Drug development is a long-term story, but we are in the shorter of the long-term because we're going after rare diseases that are unmet medical needs that have some priority review components to how they're viewed by the regulatory agencies.
I'm asking maybe because I'm not familiar. Maybe are there any of the major drug manufacturers? Are they also in this space or no? Is it really, because like you said, a lot of these pancreatic cancer is a death sentence, right? So
right. So yes. So there's been recently approved targeted precision radiotherapeutic for a neuroendocrine tumor of the pancreas, different than pancreatic cancer, like what you and I were talking about a minute ago. But and that's a big company. So they're big companies in the radiotherapeutic space that are going after these rare cancers because the pricing's favorable, the competition dynamics are favorable, some of the regulatory dynamics, as we mentioned, are favorable, and it works for us because as a smaller company, we're reasonably well funded. We've got 2+ years of cash, but we can take our virtual operating model, which is very capital efficient, and we can target a number of these. And frankly, for a company our size, 1 or 2 of these is successful, then we're really taking ourselves corporately to the next level.
Marc Hedrick, as it says on the screen there, is the president and CEO of Plus Therapeutics. By the way, congrats on the super applicable ticker symbol. I always give props when I see a good ticker symbol. PSTV, positive. I'm positive I like it. Marc, thank you so much for coming on All Access today and telling us about you, about the company. Good luck in that presentation next week, and I look forward to following the progress here.
Thanks a ton, Spencer. Appreciate it. Take care.
All right, guys. If you liked that, then let us know. We will try to bring on whoever you ask us to. Right? If you have a company, should have said that off the top. If you have a company that you like, you want to hear from them directly. The CEO, the founder, whatever. Drop the company in the chat, and we will do our very best to get them on this show or any show for that matter. So thank you so much to Marc for that conversation. Our next guest. Spoke to me on this very show about a month and a half ago, and a lot has happened in that ensuing month and a half. His name is Evan Gappelberg. He's the president CEO of NexTech AR Solutions, and they're a virtual reality, augmented reality play. And when we last spoke, the metaverse was something that most people probably only knew about in science fiction, in a book or in a movie. like Ready Player One. But if you've been, out and about and seen the news in the last couple of weeks, that has changed thanks to the company formerly known as Facebook. They have really opened the floodgates here into the possibilities and opened people's eyes to what is really happening right now with regards to the metaverse. And Evan and his company have already been there. They've been in this space already. So the floodgates have opened. That being said, let's bring on Mr. Gappelberg. Evan, what's up? How we doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Welcome to the metaverse.
Yeah. Are we in it right now? Unclear to me.
You're in it. You're in it right now. Yep.
Man. Okay. Let's start with this. What's the past month been like for you? Because as I said, this is not new for you, but it is new for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, in terms of the business, what the last few weeks been like?
So it's been super, super busy. I founded the company all the way back in 2018, right when AR Core had just launched on the back of Pokemon Go, which everyone remembers, was like a 2016 phenomenon. That was actually the first glimpse of the metaverse. And it's taken a bunch of years. It's taken a pandemic to actually push technology forward at a fast enough pace so that, like you mentioned, Facebook, a $1 trillion public company, turns themselves into a metaverse company. All that just led to the past 30 days, the last 4 years now. And so when you look at what has happened, it's actually a radical shift in mindset and really a quantum leap in everybody's desire to be part of the metaverse. So it's not just about Facebook anymore and Meta. They came out and declared they're a metaverse company. We've already been a metaverse company. We're an augmented reality company, which essentially is very similar, if not the same thing. And then you look at Microsoft, they have Microsoft Mesh. They came out and they declared their metaverse company. NVIDIA came out with their Omniverse platform, which is essentially a metaverse platform. Epic Games has a metaverse solution. Unity, everybody is clamoring to get into the metaverse. Why? Because
That's
it's
my question for
estimated.
you.
I'm going to tell you why. Because
Okay.
if you look at our economy, the global economy, it's something like $100 trillion. The metaverse is essentially a digital twin of that. That's another $100 trillion. Imagine being able to think about business and say, where's the biggest opportunity? Well, 100 trillion. I mean, that's the global economy. That's the biggest opportunity that will ever appear in our lifetimes. And so that is the metaverse. That's why big tech is moving rapidly into this space. And where do we fit in? Well, we made a transformative acquisition of a little Silicon Valley startup that these guys from Apple Computer founded about 3 years ago. And that transformed our company into a 3D model making factory, essentially. And on the heels of that acquisition, we acquired a little startup from some, young guns out of, coders really out of the UK called Arway,
And
Baron
I've
and Nick.
got the video up on the screen right now, so people
Yeah.
can see exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so we spatially mapped a house. That's what you're seeing there. That pink table, we created that with our 3D AI technology. Everything that you see in this video is NexTech technology. So we've already conquered the metaverse. We already are in the metaverse. We're creating spatial maps. And then the magic about NexTech, what makes us so unique, is we don't just create the spatial map, we actually have the technology to populate it with 3D assets. Without 3D assets, what is the metaverse? Nothing. It's like an empty shell.
Is all of this I guess, like, how do you look at all the attention, like, all these companies, right? The metaverse, metaverse is the hot name of the day. You look
Yeah,
no further than Disney name dropping the metaverse in their earnings
yeah,
report the other day. Is this a validation? I guess, like, how are you reacting? Is it on the one hand, you're probably thinking, like, finally, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
but on the other hand, you're probably thinking, like, well, wait a minute, everyone, wait a minute, Disney, hold on a second. I've been here. Where have you been?
yeah,
I've been here.
yeah, yeah. So it's an interesting question. Um, so over the past 3 years, I talk to people, and the conversation goes from augmented reality to virtual reality to AI to the Internet of Things, to 3D modeling to volumetric video capture. Everybody's got like a different thing. And what the metaverse does is really, for me, it unifies all of that under one umbrella. That's really what it does. It's just a unifying way, a unified way of speaking about all the amazing new technology that's being developed right now by NexTech and a whole cohort of additional small startups and some big companies, again, like Disney, you mentioned.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're in the space as well. What's unique again about us is that we are an end-to-end solution. We really do punch above our weight. We do stack up with big tech. If you look at our tech stack, we have the ability to create 3D models at scale. Out of just a 2D picture, we turn it into a 3D model. Nobody else can do that I'm aware of at scale. And we're about to integrate that solution with Shopify later this year, 2021. And that business for us is scaling. So within the metaverse, spatially mapping the world is a ways off. But from NexTech's business perspective and our business model, today the business is creating 3D models and populating e-commerce website with those 3D models. That's what
Yeah.
we do today. And that business is scaling very, very rapidly. We're seeing really an insatiable demand for anything that's 3D. And luckily, we are the 3D factory. So we have the ability to create thousands of 3D models, in a couple of days or a week. And then it's going to scale. Our technology is driven by AI. So as the AI learns and gets better and better at creating 3D models, that technology will be able to produce thousands, going to tens of thousands, going to hundreds of thousands, ultimately millions of models. And that's the only way you're going to populate the metaverse with content so that it's actually meaningful to people. Because you show up to the metaverse, there's nothing there.
It has
It's
to be
like,
something, right?
yeah, there's
I
got to be something there.
I think what you said is very important because it's everyone's very excited about the metaverse, but the one thing you just said is, like, a lot of that excitement, frankly, is about things that are maybe a couple years out, if not more than that. But there's already a business model, right? You've
Yeah,
already proven out. It's not like we're talking about some electric car company that has a prototype and they're 5 years out from actually realizing revenue. If that were if that were you, you'd be already realizing revenue because that's what you're doing right now. You're already realizing revenue from the business model that you've got, which is the e-commerce thing. And I think that's very important for people when looking at these, like, emerging, really, really cool technologies. Like, okay, everyone says they're going to make money about this with this in 5 years, right? But
yeah.
who's making money from it now is sort of the
E-
question, right?
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
we're on target to do roughly 25 million in gross revenue for 2021. Next year, we expect to experience hyper growth, where we see a tremendous, tremendous amount of demand again for our 3D model making capability. Right now, Kohl's is one of our customers, Pure One's one of our customers, Kmart, Lighting Plus. There's dozens of smaller and medium sized customers, and they're all doubling down. And once you go, one of the things we've noticed, Israel, is when you go 3D, there's no going back. It's
Yeah.
like once you go from a 2D website to a 3D website, it's like if you remember dial-up modems
I do.
where it would take you forever to connect to the internet and download anything, and then all of a sudden the high-speed internet came along. Nobody ever went back to the dial-up modem. And so it's the same thing with 3D models. Once you put a 3D augmented reality experience into your business on your website, you're not going back. And our business model is monthly recurring revenue. So we're not a factory that sells you the model. Our business model is we license you. We license the model and you pay us a monthly fee for that model. As long as you pay us, the model's live and everything's good. If you stop paying us, the model goes away. We own the model. And so we intend to be, our goal is to be the model factory for the metaverse and the world. And we believe that we have a head start. We believe that we have a first mover advantage and technology that allows us to actually deliver on that promise. And recently we just announced that we're launching our Metaverse Studio in Q1 2022, which is kind of it's a significant event for us because it really brings together all of our augmented reality technology. And just to put a finer point on it, we don't just create 3D models of products. We actually have an app which is going live this month that creates human holograms on demand. So 3D humans, 3D products, I think that covers pretty much everything. Actually, we could also do a 3D dog. We could turn your dog into a hologram too, if you want to. You could use the same HoloX app, which is launching this month in the Apple App Store, to turn your dog into a hologram. Super cool.
Chat, help me out here. Is there anything that this Wall Street loves more than recurring revenue? I don't think there is. I was going through your site, looking at a bunch of the PRs you guys have had recently, and I want to pull up here this video. This is we talk about the applications of this technology, and the studio that you mentioned, is one thing, but this is something different. This is something that you did. It was like an art studio. There was two things that I wanted to show. There was the art studio, and there's something you did with the city of London.
Yeah.
Explain what we're looking at here, and
Yeah.
I guess, is this also part of the business model? It must be.
So this is what we call a mini metaverse. So Barron, who is the pioneer, the futurist who created the technology, allowed us to go. He's in London. That's him right there. Actually, you can see him in the with his camera. So he spatially mapped the city of London and Guildhall using our AR-way technology. And then you see those augmented reality experiences that are being viewed through his phone. That you see the flapping butterfly, the purple butterfly behind those people.
Yep.
So that's this is a glimpse of the metaverse. He's not pressing any buttons. He's not clicking anything. All he did was lift his phone up, and in the future it'll be, the glasses, and there's the flapping butterfly. There's all these experiences in these geolocations. You see, he went to like that arrow, and then he points his phone, and it's there. It lives there. It'll be there forever. That's the metaverse. Is unless you change it. I mean, you could go into the spatial map and
Sure.
and swap out content, but yeah, we created this. We got paid for it, and it is a super, super amazing use case for us to showcase what's possible within the metaverse and our technology.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has the same reaction that I did when you see videos like that, which is like, holy cow! Like, I didn't even know that it was possible. I mean, it's possible. We've seen it, but it still feels Feels
It
weird. It
feels
feels
like
like we're in the future.
it feels like it's somewhere in the future, but it's actually here today is really the point. We're doing the pioneering work. We're ushering in this new metaverse economy, and for us, we want to be first. We're small, scrappy startup, and for us, it's about taking the risk to get to the reward, and we're
Yep.
willing to take that risk, and we're willing to do these types of um, uh, proof of concepts in these early days to show what's possible. And so it's a super exciting time for us. Our business has never been stronger. As I mentioned, the e-commerce business is really booming for us now, and we don't see that stopping. If you look at the total addressable market there, it's over $100 billion. Just think of all the Shopify sites. There's like 3 million plus Shopify sites. They all need 3D models. We're going to supply them. And that represents many billions in upside to our revenue.
Would you consider, like, if somebody approached you with a takeover offer, is that something that is interesting or not? Or
So,
you're like,
so yeah. So here's the deal on takeovers, because I get asked that a lot.
I bet.
So earlier this year, Turbo Squid, which is not a 3D factory, it's a 3D model marketplace. They got taken over for 75 million by Getty Images. 2 months ago, Epic Games bought Sketchfab, which
Yep.
is another major model, 3D model marketplace, and they paid a couple of $100 million for that. We believe that our technology is worth billions. And so for us to sell at this early stage where our market cap's like 150 million or something like that is silly. We've worked really hard to get here. It's the dawn of a new day. And ask me that question in another year or two when our market cap's a lot higher. Like we're just too cheap right now, in my opinion.
So with all that being said, like, what is the growth trajectory here? Like, can you give us? I mean, aside from higher, right? But like,
Yeah.
In terms of number of new clients, or in terms of revenue, I mean, like, I guess, like, what are your expectations? Because sometimes these
So
things can get ahead of themselves.
yeah, so we look at it in terms of think of it in terms of how many models are we being asked to produce by our customers, right? So in Q3, we were at like 3,500 models, let's say.
Okay.
In Q4, that number is going to explode to over 12,000 models. In
Wow.
Q1, it's going to explode to 40,000. In Q2,
And you're getting paid per model. Well, yeah.
yeah, per model, per month, forever.
Wow.
Exactly. And then it keeps going. So it's a mushroom cloud. It's
Yeah.
literally the beginning of what I call and what I believe is a multi-decade, multi-trillion dollar mega trend, which is including augmented reality, 3D models, virtual reality. And you can even start to include all the other new technologies that are out there, including EVs. We're getting contacted by EV companies asking us to turn their EVs into 3D models.
I believe that.
Yeah, augmented reality experiences. We just did that for the Mach-E, and we're doing it for a bunch of others. So it's a super. I mean, look, it took a long time for us to get here.
Sure.
It
I believe that too.
it
Yeah.
didn't happen in a day, right? Like this, I started in January 2018. I thought the wave was going to hit back then. It took until when did Facebook make their announcement? Was it October?
2 weeks ago.
Was
3
that
weeks ago.
November, October, right,
I
of
don't know.
2021 for it to actually happen? And
Yeah.
I thought, to be honest, that it would be Apple announcing the AR glasses that would ignite the industry, but it was Facebook, which, a dark horse, a completely different company, that came out of nowhere and really lit the market up. And now it's just game on.
Yeah. Evan Gappelberg is the president and CEO of NexTech AR Solutions, a company that is having a moment right now. I think it's fair to say the whole space is having a moment. A lot has changed since we last spoke a month and a half ago. Lord only knows if we speak in another month and a half what will be happening then. Evan, thank you so much for joining us today on All Access, and we will definitely be keeping in touch and seeing how things go here.
Thanks, Spencer. And I can't wait to turn you into a human hologram. That's going to be fun. We're going to do that. It's going to happen.
There's enough of one of me is fine. I don't think we need any more of that. But I appreciate the offer.
We could transport you all over the world with your human hologram. You could be everywhere. Come on, Spencer. Who doesn't want to be everywhere?
Right. I'll think about it. This is a Matrix turning into a Matrix situation here. Thanks a lot, Evan.
Thank you, Spencer.
All right. Hey, guys. Again, smash that like button. Let's go. We had 2 amazing interviews. We had Marc. We had Evan. Companies doing some really cool stuff. Let's be honest, right? You got Marc and plus Therapeutics, tackling, diseases that have no cure, and you've got a metaverse AR VR play, right? I mean, these are the kinds of companies that we're trying to find for this show. Companies that in emerging spaces, not companies that had their moment and developed a product, 5, 10, 15 years ago. We're not interested in that, right? We're interested in what's coming. And there's some more risk to that. Sure. There is more risk to that. But we're always looking forward. We're not looking back. And so those are the kinds of companies that we try to bring on this show. Our next company is in the exact same vein. YTEN Bioscience is the company. Let's see if I can bring on their CEO right now, Ollie Peoples. I see him lurking backstage. I see you, Ollie. I'm going to bring you on right now. There he is. Ollie Peoples, President CEO of YTEN Bioscience. Ollie, how are we doing today?
Good, Spencer. How are you?
Doing fantastic. So let's pivot here. We were just talking about the metaverse, but let's pivot to ESG, right? Something that we probably don't talk about enough on our channel. Environmental, social governance, and this is a serious focus on the institutional side of Wall Street. Something that investors are looking at hard right now, and YTEN Bioscience falls within that ESG framework. Explain to us why. Explain to us what you do.
Yeah, so we're actually an ag biotech company. We're really involved in developing technologies for the next generation of seeds, and I think really with respect to enabling us to produce food more efficiently, to manage better some of these, really challenging weather conditions that have been happening over the last few years, but also to use agriculture as a way to mitigate carbon output and climate change. And it's a long way removed from the software presentation we just had earlier, which was fascinating. And obviously, when you talk about a timeline from 2018 to 21, that's lightning speed compared to agriculture. And so, this takes time, but basically what we're really doing is looking to invert the sort of carbon emissions and actually ultimately get to carbon sequestration.
So maybe you can explain how exactly you're doing that.
Yeah. So if you look at how
it's a big question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's really easy. No.
Okay.
Oh, not quite. So if you think about how we have, built society over the last 150 years, we've literally taken, carbon out of the ground in the form of oil and gas and coal, and we put a lot of up in the air. And obviously we've generated a tremendous growth in sort of, I would say, standards of living, but also human population.
Right.
And also, if you think about it, that carbon coming out of the ground is not only used to produce fuel and energy, it's also the source of bioplastics or plastics. And if you think about plastics, there is virtually no element of current day living that plastics are not involved in. And although there's always pressures for them to, to stop doing that, look what happened with COVID. We're all running around looking for PPEs, and they're all made from plastics. And that's going to continue. So they're absolutely necessary. The key is, can we find a way to invert that while continuing to produce, growing and meet the growing demand for food production?
I think we'd all agree less plastic, probably a good thing. I think that's not a very hot take across the board. I mean, maybe if you're a plastic company, but that would be unfortunate. But for the rest of us, so you mentioned COVID and PPE and all the supply chain chaos that ensued, right, from the pandemic and the results of that. Has that changed anything in terms of your bigger picture? Has it made you press the pedal to the metal a little bit quicker than you were?
I would say not really. I mean, I think it's really helped us. I hate to say that, but it's helped, I think, in general, from the point of view of, for the first time, the US, consumer would go to the grocery store and there's no toilet roll, right? This is like you think you need your iPhone or your iPad.
It's crazy.
But not as much as you need food, water, and clearly toilet rolls. So when you look at that, you realize that, I think we've kind of all reset, had a reality reset, that a pandemic can happen, that it's pretty catastrophic, and that it impacts the entire value chain, not just for, the toys that we play with, but also things like, food and fuel. And that's why you see inflation in the country today. It's all driven by, logistics problems, shortages, and obviously that's what's happening.
So tell us a little bit about like the product development here and how that actually works.
And it does kind of link into, it really does link back into sort of, there's a really good analogy with software and technology. So the technology we use is what's referred to as synthetic biology. And synthetic biology is really applying engineering principles to living organisms. And the core to what we do is a platform. It's a computational platform called GRAIN, and it's got a long-winded name, Gene Ranking Artificial Intelligence Network. But really what it does is it mines data. It's a data mining tool that enables us to identify plant genes that are that need to be modified or which could be modified in the plant to enable us to have higher productivity, have better yields, have tolerance to heat, tolerance to drought, these types of things. And then through some of the new tools, in particular, CRISPR genome editing, which is like, that's like
Oh, you're saying all the buzzwords now.
Yeah, they're all buzzwords. I mean, it still comes down to the same thing, which is it's still ultimately all of the buzzwords ultimately have to be captured in something that ultimately works in the hands of a farmer year in, year out. So the front end of synthetic biology is tremendously sexy, no question.
Yes.
It's got an incredible potential. The challenge, of course, is to translate that potential and the sort of, if you like, the software aspect of it into the hardware. And in this case, hard really defines hardware because it is hard to do that. And so with new tools like CRISPR genome editing, and obviously GMO, for which there's definitely a reaction among certain percent of the population, you realize that we have the tremendous potential to really evolve the way we do agriculture, to get much more sustainable about it, and to use it not only for food production, but to mitigate some of these major climate problems.
I don't mean this in a bad way, but I think when people think about gene editing, their first thought is probably not what you're doing, right? Is that like a safe? Yeah,
it's an interesting. As I said, I think if it's again, there's a and it's not to blame the education system, because it's an area that people fundamentally, it's not as exciting as asteroids and dinosaurs to kids in schools, right? So nobody's going to talk about the need to manage waste to produce.
Right.
You just assume it's there, right? Until it's not there, and then guess what? You got a real problem. And so that's really part of the issue. But if you think about how we got from the early days of we walk out of a cave with a club in hand, and we decide, let's stop beating animals over the head. Let's just focus on growing plants and eating seeds. And so, 5,000 years ago, we had, a few handful of plants that turned out to be ultimately what's more or less produced today. Things like wheat, other grains, even the oilseed we work on, camelina, goes back that far in history. But what happened then is humanity got involved, and we started, without knowing what it was, to actually breed these things and to select genetic diversity just by looking at it and saying, this one looks better than that one, so why don't we, cross these two, mate them basically, and see how their progeny does. And through thousands of years or so, we ultimately developed a relatively small number of crops. It's really the key to global food security. And then, of course, as we got into the science here, that all accelerated.
So I want to ask you, Ali, just about the market, the use cases and the markets, right? Because we could, speak hypothetically about all the potential use cases, but what do you actually, where are you actually right now? What markets are,
So there's really, there's three areas. One is really, one of the challenges for a small company in ag is you look at what's happened to the industry, and it's consolidated in the hands of 3 or 4 major players. These are people like Corteva, Bayer, Syngenta, BASF. It's interesting that 4 chemical companies own the bulk of the seed business.
That's interesting. I never thought about that, but yeah, you're right.
It's such a tremendously valuable asset. And I think, so you see that, and then what you realize is they control the big crops, things like corn and soybean and canola, cotton. They really control those because of the technology that's inherent, which obviously benefits not only the farmer, but also benefits the environment through things like no-till agriculture. And so for our use of our technologies in those crops, it's really about licensing. So we have agreements in place with Bayer, with GDM, which is a major South American soybean company, Forest Genetics, which is one of the big dairy producers, and then essentially Simplot, which is the inventor of the frozen French fry, and therefore very dear to my heart. And so in that area, that's what we do. But in the crop we're working on, which is a new oilseed called camelina, really our focus near term is scaling up to supply oil into the renewable diesel market. And that market has literally grown and is expected to grow from about 1 billion gallons this year to 5 billion gallons. And to supply that market for renewable diesel, which is really directly targeted at, regulations already in place to force oil companies to reduce their carbon footprint, it's going to require somewhere around 40 billion pounds of vegetable oil, which is quite a lot. And so 40 billion pounds, if you want to get a benchmark, is on top of the 200 billion pound total global market today. So it's a major increase. There's not going to be more land available. So obviously, new types of agriculture, row cropping to produce oil, so you get 2 crops per year, and using other land that really is not suitable for the major crops becomes really important. So we see the renewable diesel market ultimately working in partnership with some of these big fuel companies to essentially become suppliers of the oil to those facilities is probably our best near-term opportunity.
What kind of capital does that require? It seems that seems really expensive.
Well, if you're converting an oil refinery over to produce renewable diesel, I mean, that's actually the reason the oil companies like that technology is because the feedstock is just different from a barrel of oil coming out of the ground, but it's ultimately the conversion technology, which is called hydroreforming. It is basically something that they're very familiar with, and so they're actually converting existing diesel refineries over to produce renewable diesel, and it's a who's who of the big oil. It's basically Exxon, it's Shell, it's BP, it's basically Phillips, it's Marathon, it's Chevron. I mean, it's a who's who, and they're all doing this. And I have to be honest, I think they're really doing it because otherwise they can't sell diesel in certain markets.
What is the timeline here, Ali?
Yeah, so
how far away are we from realizing real significant revenue here?
Yeah, so we are really, I would say, just starting the process of scaling up.
Yeah.
Both two different types of camelina. One is something you plant in the spring in the Pacific Northwest. The other is something you plant, it's called winter camelina, you plant in the fall. And it's used as a cover crop. which of course is important for the health of the soil, for reducing climate change impacts of food production. And you harvest that in the spring before you plant soybean again. So you get a second crop. So we think we can basically do this on a two harvests per year. But right now we're scaling up. We're starting to produce some of our engineered seeds, including something we call E3902, which is a code for a genome edited camelina that's already gone through the regulatory process with USDA APHIS and be cleared, and which has 5% more oil in it than your typical camelina. So we're scaling that up. And the way this works is from an acre, you could plant 150 acres. From 150 acres, it goes up by 150 each time. So it takes time to scale these up, but that's where we are in the process. We're scaling that up. And then this winter, we're actually scaling up a winter camelina line up in Saskatchewan, which, in case you don't know, gets rather chilly.
So I've heard. I wouldn't know from experience, but I've heard that. Yeah,
it's a little different.
Yeah.
So it is an experience to go there, and great people. But fundamentally, what you find is it's a very challenging environment for any crop to be overwintered, and we found that camelina seems to work well.
I met somebody from Saskatchewan once. Anyway, what is the biggest challenge here? Like, what is the biggest roadblock? The most difficult aspect of what you're doing, because in reading about the company, it all sounds great, right? Yeah. Obviously, you don't have to sell people on the idea; you need to sell them on the execution.
It's an execution issue, and
right.
Of course, there's a couple of challenges. One is it takes time to do this.
Sure.
Just because you can't rewrite the software every evening.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many people you've got. You still have to go through these growing seasons. So there is a time issue that's challenging to manage. But we're currently looking for an area to do a second season in the winter, and that seems to be coming on stream. And that's typically what the big ag companies do. You'll do what they call contra-season production, so you get 2 cycles per year instead of 1. The second thing is that the agricultural system in North America today is very dependent on what they call herbicide tolerance. In other words, herbicide tolerance is really important for protecting the crop and for managing weeds and protecting the yields, etc. And the industry, or the farmers as a whole, have adopted herbicide tolerance pretty much all over North America, US and Canada, and it enables a much more sustainable form of agriculture called no-till. So really, right now, we're building herbicide tolerance into this camelina oilseed. Fortunately, we have a roadmap from the work done in canola, which is already a major crop, and essentially allows us to accelerate that. So that's actually a gating issue for us, not in terms of getting started, but in terms of really scaling it. So, getting to 10 or 20,000 acres without that is probably pretty realistic. But if you want to go to 1 million acres, you absolutely have to have it.
One thing I don't think I got clarity on this, but like, how long has this been in the works? Maybe you said that, I don't remember.
Yeah, so the transition over to we've been really focused on really the trait gene discovery, if you like, our grain platform and identifying genes and licensing. But about 2 years ago, we started to work on the path forward for camelina, because it's a unique opportunity to use a new crop that would be grown in North America, processed in North America, and where the products would be used solely in North America. And that has a big impact on how you think about the global ag regulatory situation, which is primarily driven by, politics, to be honest. And so it allows us to sort of keep out of that. And the products we're making, starting with renewable diesel, the demand is there. That 40 billion pounds of additional oil demand is actually in North America. So there's no concern about that. The second product, which we have further back in the pipeline, is actually, again, a sustainable product. It's a direct replacement for fish oil, used for essentially, health and wellness as a nutraceutical, but also as a major ingredient for aquaculture farming, salmon farming. And then the third product, which is much further out in time, is actually a natural, fully biodegradable plastic, which we have deep experience from our history in producing using, engineered microorganisms in big steel tanks. It's called fermentation. And we actually built a major facility in a partnership with ADM, which is a major grain processor. operated it, had relationships with lots of brand owners, solved a lot of the challenges of how does this material get turned into useful plastic articles. But you run into the issue that fundamentally plastics is a cost business. And if you have a cost that's 3 to 5x, it makes it really difficult. So we have been working on this quietly for a number of years. And in 2019, we announced that we had a breakthrough in terms of how to do this in Camelina. Early 2021, we reported the first successful field tests of this, producing 6% bioplastic in the seed. We'll be reporting out the scale up of that this year. And next year will be at acre scale. So this is moving from really a blue sky idea that's been in the works for a very long time to acre scale in agriculture in a very short period of time. In the software business, that's decades. So
right. I mean, the reason I asked that question is because I knew you had spent your entire career on this track in some form or another, right? But like pretty much your entire professional life doing this. So
yeah, and I would say, the technology success, and this is actually a major challenge for synthetic biology, and there's a tremendous investor interest in this space. But the real challenge of synthetic biology is, yes, you can make all kinds of products. The big challenge is, can you actually make money? And raising money is not the same as generating earnings from sales. And so our focus as the earlier business was obviously revenue and sales. And what happened is as we got better and better at producing, the cost numbers became very clear. And then the market interest waned, given that we were so much more expensive than the incumbent materials, which are petroleum-based plastics. And the whole sustainability argument disappeared because we were sort of brainwashed with the idea that recycling works. And that turns out, based on some announcements by China a couple of years back, to be absolutely not true. And so we've seen a massive resurgence of interest. But I have absolutely, there's a lot of pain involved when something doesn't work. And you take it so far, it's brutal. And it's taken a while to get around it. So although I am absolutely convinced it's a fantastic solution, it works across the board. It truly gives you something that functions in use, has good shelf life, and it fully degrades. If the cost is 3 to 5x, it won't work. And so what we've also been working on is, if you think about the process, and it's really, so you take sugars or oil from agriculture that are produced by farming and processing, and then you build these very large, expensive vats, the same kind of vats you make beer in, but much more technologically sophisticated and expensive, and you produce this stuff, then what happens is you end up at that very high cost position. So the beauty of this as a natural material is the machinery necessary for making it in the micro can be put into a plant. And that's what we've done with Camelina. So now, by directly producing it in the plant, you're literally farming plant plastic. It's sort of a wacky idea, but it's actually working, and we're scaling it.
Ollie Peoples, President and CEO of YTEN Bioscience. I think, rooting for you is like rooting for the future of Earth. So I'm rooting for you. And thanks for coming on All Access today. I appreciate the time.
I appreciate it too, sir. Thank you, Spencer.
All right. Thank you, Ollie. And thanks to YTEN. Okay, we are coming to the final segment of today's show. It'll be a little bit of a different segment. If you missed it, last week we had our annual Benzinga Global FinTech Awards. It's the one day a year where we sort of take a step back and just look around our industry, look at our peers, and look at all the cool stuff that everyone's doing in creating new tools for traders and investors, and doing cool things with data. And we give away awards, right, for all the cool stuff that's happening out there. And those awards, anyone is free to apply. The awards are given out. It's a combination of a vote, and we have a judging panel, an expert panel that we compile, and they judge these companies. And all the awards are given out that way, except for one. There is one exception to that, and that is the People's Choice Award. And that award is given out, I should say that award is decided at the FinTech Awards, right? It is not decided at a time. It is voted by the people at the FinTech Awards. And we call this the People's Choice Award. And I have the winner of that award right here, lurking backstage. And I'm going to bring him on, and I'm going to have him tell us all about his company, Aries. And actually, he's located not far from me right now in Michigan, I think, which is pretty cool. But let's bring on Reda Folly from Aries. Reda, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going, man? Yeah, I'm actually just as surprised as you are, right? We've only been around for a couple of months, so to win
Yeah.
as People's Choice is a true testament to the power of our user base, right? It seems like people are really vibing with what we're putting out, which is cool.
If you haven't, if you missed it, which I understand, I wouldn't hold it against you. But Reda has been on our show before, not this show, but he's been on Benzinga before. He was on the Power Hour, I believe, a few months ago, and actually streamed from this very room. Fun fact. But Reda, tell us about Aries, because, like you said, you're such a new company. Congratulations, first off, and second of all, tell us about it.
Sure, man. So Aries is a trading platform, right? And I think maybe it's a little bit more of a story than it is a company. Because
Yes, I love stories.
I've been an investor my entire life, right? And around 2015, 2016, we saw this shift from these super professional trading platforms like TD Ameritrade's Thinkorswim to a super gamified, I would say maybe a little bit of a millennial investment platform, right? Like Robinhood. And that dynamic shift destroyed the market, right? It wasn't just a shift in people investing more. It was a huge dynamic change to the way that the market operates. And with that, we see more and more interest in the stock market. So as time went on, right, I kind of decided like, hey, I don't really like using Robinhood so much. The executions aren't that great. And it seems too dumbed down for me. But at the same time, nobody really wants to spend the time to learn how to use something like Thinkorswim. How come there isn't anything in the middle? How come I have to at least be paying a couple $100 a month for crazy amounts of data and then supplement that with another platform? Or I can only be using Robinhood. Why isn't there a middle ground? And that's where Aries was born. I just tried to create what I thought was the most perfect platform for me. And it seems like people are vibing with it.
You started as your own customer, your own ideal customer.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
I'm just wondering though, like, we all think that we would all love if certain products were the way we liked them, right? You actually went and built a product you would like, but did you think about like, I wonder how many other people agree with me on this, or not? That just never really crossed your mind.
Well, on the bright side, I was running a data service at the time, right? So I had a bit of a following, right? We had about 40 or 50,000 users on one of our data services, and I just decided to market what we were doing with Aries directly to them. So it was really more of a community effort, man. Like all the guys at Ada Trade, those are the guys that was the name of our data provider. All those guys are really who helped build Aries. They kind of decided like, oh, we like things like this. We don't like things like that. And we've been beta running it the entire time using their user feedback to build Aries. I wouldn't really say this is a product of my mind or our development team's mind. It's more of a product of the people's mind. We just put out an original product and then we took criticism and we ran with it. So big kudos go out to my COO, Pash. He's a fantastic developer, right? And he worked at the Canadian Imperial Bank for quite a long time. And he's a scrum master. So he actually manages teams that build agile or build in agile. And that means that they're pushing out a product and every 2 weeks they're taking in user feedback and trying to make it better and better and better. And because of that, we've been able to kind of smoke our competition in terms of like building out new things and giving people what they want. And I think that's really what keeps people on Aries, is the fact that we're always willing to listen, and we're just trying to make it so that people don't have to pay exorbitant fees or deal with a lower product. They can just get what they want, however they want it.
Okay, so what's the catch? You're not charging commissions, and you're not, and you're providing a better product. Some maybe not the worst execution out there. So what's the catch?
That's a good question, man. I think people ask me that all the time, and really, just like Robinhood, right? How does Robinhood make money? How does any broker make money? The cool thing about us is we're a trading platform. So we're partnered directly with TradeStation. So TradeStation's been around for 30 some odd years. And they're managing your money. It's not like I'm, like I'm 20 years old. It's not like I'm a 20-year-old kid with a bunch of money coming into coming in from users all over the world, and I have access to this bank account, right? I feel like that'd be rather irresponsible. We're using TradeStation to handle all of our customer service, all of our user onboarding, and that has made the process a lot easier. So obviously we're making money, right? But I wouldn't say that the catch is at the user's expense.
Got it. So what TradeStation is getting is a faster, more agile platform than they could probably build.
Yeah, so
a leaner platform that they could probably build on their own.
So I feel like it's no secret that when you become a large company, it's very hard to take risks. Like you don't want to risk your current user base by trying to create a whole new millennial platform and putting all your developers there. So they get our development team, they get our expertise, and without really too much of the risk, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? Like, oh, they get a bunch more users, right? So that's kind of like where the symbiosis came.
Yeah, and so how long again has this been in the works?
I mean, we've been developing for just a little bit under 2 years, but we've only been out for about 3 years. I'm sorry, 3 months. We've been out for 3 months, and I actually still consider us in the beta phase, believe it or not. So we've been growing ridiculously, but I still consider us in beta. We have a crazy amount of tools coming out over the next 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, we've revamped our entire platform, and we've made, I think, like, my whole goal was, it's going to be impossible to break into a space where that's dominated by titans like Webull and Robinhood, even smaller guys like Moomoo. But the truth is, the only way that we're going to be able to go up against these people is to really truly make a platform that's better, faster, and people like more. So that's the end goal. And I really do believe in the next 6 to 8 weeks we are going to have a platform that can go toe to toe.
Is it 100% mobile at this point?
We launched web at your FinTech Awards.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that.
No, it's all good. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I must have missed that announcement. Okay, so you have web, you have mobile, and the idea here was like a little bit more bells and whistles, right? Than in terms of the data, than a Robinhood or maybe a Gatsby would have.
Let me give you an example, man.
Yeah.
So I'm a value investor, right? So I need all kinds of data, just fundamental data, in order to be able to make an assessment on a stock. You may be you may like technical analysis. You like to look at charts, and the guy right next to you, he may like a combination of the both. But maybe he likes to look at unusual order flow and stuff like that.
Sure.
So if you're looking at just unusual order flow, that's probably going to cost you anywhere from $200 to $500 a month in order to get the best access to dark pool orders and options flow orders. For me, I just need fundamental data. That might cost me like $150 a month to $200 a month.
This data, guys, you don't know, because Benzinga is in the business of market data. It is expensive.
Yeah.
It is insanely expensive. These exchanges, that's the business. They're data companies. They sell data. That's how they make their money. It is so expensive. They can gouge you. Anyway,
exactly, man. You're talking about like 6 figures in monthly spend on data, right?
Yeah.
That's how much it would cost to run a platform that can compete against a Titan. But so here's the trick, right? I love to say this, right? If we could give users access to the data that they want because we're directly tied into that user base, I truly believe that that's our hook, right? Like if I could tell people, look, all you gotta do is sign in with your Aries account, and I'll give you the options flow data. I'll give you the fundamentals data, and you can trade with just as fast execution as anywhere else, with just as much intricacy or leniency as anywhere else, and open up as many accounts as you want, margin cash, make it really a true all-in-one middle ground platform. I honestly think that that's what people are looking for, and obviously people are vibing with that, right? It's not it's not unprecedented to say that the growth that we've had is just because we're listening to our users, and that's what companies need to be doing, right? We live in an age where the internet's so easy that you can just ask, right? Like, hey, what do you guys want? Instead of thinking I know everything, right? I'm the product manager, and everything that's in my mind, that's what people want.
Yeah.
The reality is you should just put out a product and try to listen to your customer, because at the end of the day, if you can even offer something that's going to change somebody's life or improve their life by 1%, like that's the goal, right? Like I'm not trying to change the world. The trading platform is not trying to change the world. I'm just trying to make it easier or less of a headache to get the things that you need to, to push your trades. And if that makes your life 1% better, like that's all I need.
Yeah, Trade Aries is the website to whomever asked that, and we're on with the CEO of that company, Reda. He's the winner of the People's Choice Award at this year's Benzinga Global FinTech Awards. Who is the platform best for? Like for example, like someone like me, I do some trading on occasion, but I'm really more of like a longer term guy, and I like to look at my portfolio in terms of like asset allocation, and I like to think about those types of things, and do some repositioning here and there, and I'll do some YOLO trades for fun to keep myself engaged. But I'm not like the most active person out there. Is this good for me?
Yeah, the beauty of this is, man, you just described it, right? You can go on and do a YOLO if you wanted to. You could go on and push a spread if you wanted to. You could go on and start taking a look at the data to push a larger trade for the long term if you wanted to. And the beauty of it is you can access it from any platform. In fact, I know this is going to get a little bit technical, right? But we're built in one of the newest frameworks for building these types of applications, and it comes from Google. But the coolest part about that is that it allows us to push updates seamlessly across all our platforms. So you might notice that other companies will push something on their mobile app, and then later, a couple months later, it'll go up on their mobile app, right? I'm sorry, on their web app, and like you have this long run before a product officially hits all all platforms. But for us, the minute something comes out, it's up everywhere. And I think that's pretty cool.
Can you explain a little bit without getting too nitty gritty here? How is the execution better than a competitor? Why? How?
Okay, so again, without trying to get too nitty gritty, but a company like Robinhood typically has, and I don't want to obviously I don't want to speak on Robinhood or TradeStation or anybody like that. I'm just talking in general. But a company like Robinhood makes the majority of their money off of pushing order flow for users, right? And I think that's a bad rap. It gets a bad rap in this community where people start talking about payment for order flow, and they think that like somebody's watching their specific orders. But the true reality of the situation is that in most cases, payment for order flow and high frequency trading helps execution. But because
thank you,
right?
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, but so because Robinhood created such a dynamic shift in the markets, they have so many users that sometimes it's hard for their infrastructure to push the order, and on the other end, I would say the receiving end, it's hard for it's a delay. Okay, you don't have to be a genius. You're not speculating if you go on Robinhood and you're trying to push an order and you try to push it from a more premium solution that charges you commissions or does their own clearing. And Robinhood does do their own clearing. It's just the same way that they used to do it with Apex. I just mean it in like a more traditional sense. It's no secret that the execution is better on the legacy platforms, and the only reason for that is Robinhood's size and the fact that they created this kind of order flow shift in the markets, and because of that, they're always going to have kind of like a speed bump. Like I don't know how to describe it exactly without getting too technical.
That's a loaded term. That's a loaded term.
Yeah, they're always gonna have that, right? But then you also could I can go on and on and on. You also have new exchanges coming up like IEX that's giving the market its own speed bump to control high frequency trading.
Right.
But I think I'm getting away from the question.
I think like something that you just hit on is like payment for order flow. Frankly, unless you are a professional trader who does this for a living every single day, if you're that person, then it's going to affect you, right?
Yeah,
but if you're not that person, then like think about it from a cost perspective. Would you rather lose a few cents on either side of your trade? Or would you rather pay a $5 commission? You know what I mean? On either side of the trade. It's one
I
or
think
the
there
other.
is a middle ground, man. Like TradeStation has been around for so long, and they have a ton of plans. Some that include commissions, some that are just based on order flow, some that are just because they've been self-clearing and they've been around for 30 odd years. We haven't done tests that are like done by a separate party that I can be like, oh, we're way faster. So I'm not going to say that. Yeah. I'm just going to say you can try it for yourself. Okay, download our app, download any other legacy and millennial broker, and test it. Because I've been a trader my entire life, and I would not build something with garbage execution. So just know, you don't have to take my word for it. You can test it for yourself. But my word is that it's relatively pretty good, if not better.
Reda is CEO of Aries Trading, tradearies.com. I put the link up on the screen. Yeah, I'll put it back up there. It's also in the description of this video. And a local guy, Reda, we got to get you back in the office at some point.
Yeah, man, I'm not more than
soon.
like 10 minutes away, right? And if anybody does decide to go to the Trade Aries website, I highly recommend that you guys also join our Discord. We love criticism, so
gotta promote the Discord.
Yeah.
For a company as new as yours, fantastic stuff. I mean, it's not an accident, right? Like you're here because people voted on you as your company is doing some really, really cool, groundbreaking stuff, right?
Yeah, and I really appreciate that, man. We wouldn't be here without our users.
Yeah. So congratulations again. And as early days as it is for the companies that we just spent the last hour and a half talking to, it's earlier for a company like Aries, right?
Yeah.
And we're rooting for you seriously here at Benzinga. And I, full disclosure, have not tried you out, but I'm going to try you out.
Oh man, we're gonna blow your mind. Next couple of months, the data tools that my team has built, kudos go out to Pash for sure. The data team has gone crazy. We've built some things that I think people are really gonna love. So
wait, if you have a question from the chat, drop it in. Rich just asked one, and a good one too. Do you allow trading out for OTC stocks or OTC securities?
Yeah, we do. We're not just. By the way, we're not just stocks and options. We're adding crypto and futures next week. We also have micro futures and indexes.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, we're really trying to be the middle ground here, man. We're trying to give you exact access to whatever you want. We're not about restriction. It's all about leveling the playing field.
Damn. All right. I'm sure there's a catch we just haven't gotten to yet. We'll have to dig a little bit deeper. We have to dig a little deeper. Reda, congratulations. Thanks so much for coming on today, and keep up the great work. And we'll definitely be in touch and be keeping tabs on how things are going over at Aries. All right, thanks a lot. All right, guys, that's our wrap for All Access today. Right, you heard from 3 emerging publicly traded companies in the biotech and the metaverse space, and a brand new trading platform. That is not public, and that's not the point. The point is that you can invest in them. The point is to try them out, right? That right there, that is the point of the Benzinga FinTech Awards. What you just heard, that's why we do the FinTech Awards every year, is to give attention to companies like Aries that are doing really, really cool stuff. There are so many every year, new companies doing cool things like Aries, which I'm sure a lot of you hadn't heard of, right? That's what's happening in fintech, and we try really hard to shine a light on that because there's so many cool things happening. And it's not just the Robin Hoods of the world and the TD Ameritrades of the world. It's not just the big guns, right? It's the ones you haven't heard of. So if you missed our Benzinga FinTech Awards, you can go to benzingafintech.awards.com to see who is there. I'm sure we'll have another one next year. I am going out on a limb and saying it'll be in person, unlike the last 2 years. And if you went to the after party, let me know in the chat if you're in New York. But I'm venturing it's going to be in person next fall, October, November, somewhere in that area. All right, that'll be a wrap here. We had Marc Hedrick on from Plus. We had Evan Gappelberg from NexTech. We had Ali Peoples from YTEN, and we had Reda from Aries. Smash that like button for me, please. I really do appreciate that. We are going to try to be doing more of these kinds of shows that not really so much about the stock today, the stock next week, the stock next month, more so just like zooming out. Let's get the story here. Let's understand the market, understand the thesis. How will you get there? What will happen if you don't get there? Or what will stop you from getting there? And we've gotten some good feedback, so we're going to keep doing it. And so on that note, I'm going to wrap it up here. SPAX Attack is next, and stay tuned for that because they have a very special announcement about SPAC's attack. I'm not going to say what it is, but a special announcement about the future of that show. By the way, shout out to those guys. The 1 year anniversary of SPAC's attack was yesterday, I think. So shout out to Chris and Mitch. But they have a special announcement about the future of SPAC's attack coming up next at 11 o'clock Eastern time. I'll be back on the stream in about an hour from now for Benzinga Live. Another jam-packed day. I want to mention that specifically because Luminar, ticker LAZR, will have the CFO on 12:45 p.m. Eastern time today on Benzinga Live. That'll, of course, be followed by Moon or Bust, be followed by At the Close, be followed by Money Mitch, and that's your day. So I hope everyone's having a great day so far. I hope you're staying green. I hope you're making money. Hope you enjoyed this show. Leave us some feedback if you want. Email us shows@benzinga.com. We read every email, even if we don't always respond, but we read them all, I promise. Smash that like button for me, please, and thank you. I'd appreciate that. Oh, Rich is saying 88 likes. Can we get to 100 likes? We can get to 100 likes. We can do it. We can do it. Oh, Brad, I didn't see your question. I'm sorry. Brad, I apologize. I looked away from the chat for a minute. I'm sure he does. I don't know the answer to Brad's question. Trailing stops. Reda, if you're still lurking or still watching, Brad Sims, that's like not like the most extravagant feature. So I'm imagining if they offer crypto, surely they can offer trailing stops. So there we go. Do they offer free swag? Abe's asking all the right questions. All the right questions, Abe. I don't know. Probably not, right? They're like a 3-month-old company, right? Probably it's a no on the swag for now. I don't know. Check those guys. Ask Reda. Email them. I don't know on the swag thing. By the way, we have a swag store, swag.benzinga.com. Check it out if you want some Benzinga swag. All right, I'm going to hop off here. 13-minute break. SPAC's Tech Live at 11 o'clock. And everyone, I will see you then. And stay green. Stay filled.